Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, the esports historian, the man who is esports. It is Duncan Thorin Shields, the Kwisatz Haderach of esports, I would say. And of course, yes. And of course...
Oh, sad thing is, fans won't even know who that is until the next movie in, like, what, 2 years or something, right? Because that first one... That was, by the way, how did no one talk about that topic, right? Everyone had these opinions. Oh, what do you think of Dune? Was it good? How about this? If you know the book, you just go... What? How can that be the end? We're like halfway through the first book. What? And then because if I don't know, did I miss a memo, dude? I never found out going into that it was like part 1 of 2 or whatever the fuck. Like I was just told it's the movie, you know.
Yeah, they really didn't include that a lot in the early marketing.
No, it's weird, isn't it?
I didn't know that either going in, and sort of when it abruptly ended, I was like. And then it said, you know, it's got that terrible line at the end, hasn't it? Where this is just the beginning.
Exactly.
Shoot me in the fucking head
for another day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then it was all a dream. Like this is garbage. Like get me out. Like, this is like a child writing their first short story. But anyway, you know, I was like, I went on the internet immediately afterwards, and it's like, oh, there is going to be a second film, and it's like, well, I guess. You know, I haven't really come to a final decision about how much I like the first movie yet. I'll judge it based on the second one, I think, and then when I can see the totality, and maybe there'll be like a director's cut where they're smashed together in an interesting way with deleted scenes. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. So,
by the way, on that topic, shall I tell you something really sad? And it is just sad because it just shows how when you're in the middle of the eye of the storm of all the drama, it's impossible to have perspective on what's going on. Yeah. Mate, if you knew how many people in the industry, like unsolicited, just send me DMs every week that are just like, I thought it was hilarious when you made that tweet about I Am Esports. they all get it, by the way, all of them. They all get it. But only in private, I notice. Yeah. I'll say not a fucking one of them, you know, it's coming out publicly saying that. But privately, mate, it's so tilt-worthy because it's like basically if everyone collectively was like, we all agree this one thing, Thorin, and we're all united. And then privately, like hundreds of them are like, I don't agree with that at all. It's like, great, well, thanks. Cheers, mate.
You're on your own, though.
This is why I am esports, because if you were esports, you'd stand side by side with me like I am Spartacus, wouldn't you? But instead, you just leave me on my own, and it's like if I in Spartacus, I just went, I am Spartacus, and they were like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so kill him.
What the fuck? It's him.
Exactly.
It's him.
They were like, you're right, Thorin, strength in numbers. We all just agreed to be the other number, not with you. It's like, sounds great. Brilliant. Yeah, awesome.
To be fair, a pretty strong position, as it turned out. Anyway, as you can probably tell, guys, by the intro, we've done Doom, we've done Spartacus. Maybe we'll do more movies. It is a classic filler episode of By the Numbers because it's been a slow news week. Obviously, at the time of recording this, the Katowice play-in is literally just finishing. It's like on the last map right now. So we're going to talk about that and contextualize it.
I've got a piece of info I have to tell you because this is potential best of By the Numbers. That's the trajectory. Because there's a detail we missed. No, this is one where if you haven't seen it, it is so mental that this would even happen. Like this is some pure simulation level callback, right? Okay. During, obviously we didn't ever discuss because it was like 2 weeks ago, but we had that filler episode. Obviously, Pasha, the now Team Liquid influencer, came and had an MMA. It was technically like a boxing match in an MMA ring. Yeah, exactly. With it was like sort of basically more of a boxing match than an MMA fight if you don't know the sports. And basically, obviously, Pasha won it and everyone was supporting him. This is the detail. I can't even believe I'm one of the only people who saw this, right? Because obviously everyone kept saying stuff to Pasha before the fight, like, you should hit him in the head like he is Kaylee or whatever. No. Kaylee did a tweet where he showed he was supporting Pasha by watching the fight, but you're not even going to believe it. That's not it. That in itself's good. This detail is pure simulation.
Okay.
When you looked at the screenshot of Kaylee's laptop, he's only he's illegally streaming it. He didn't even pay for it. I'm not joking. He had one of those, like the text, I can't remember what the name is, but it's one of those famous sites that just does the illegal restreams. This cunt hasn't even been in the game by this point, like half a decade. Remember, it was the end of 2014 for fuck's sake. He hasn't been in the game, but famously, he did potentially cheat Pasha at a major, right? Yeah. He comes back and thinks, get a bit of goodwill going, won't I? Show I support the guy. Not going to pay for that shit, of course.
I know.
Brother!
Oh, mate.
This guy's on like the Hunden level of like how bad he is at PR, and you're like, why even bother?
I always.
I'll see if I can find it for Sam to pull up on something. It's so
you'll have to.
shameless.
I mean, we can even edit it in post. Who knows?
That's true.
But like, listen, I'll always say we were denied the best piece of content ever. Because you reached out to me. This is like a few years ago. You reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to come on the Richard Lewis show and do a podcast with you and talk about my experiences and stuff." And I said, "Oh, great. Well, you'll confess to all the times that you cheated at LAN then." And he went, "Oh, I never did. Never cheated at LAN." So I was like, "Well, I'm not going to believe that." And he went, "No, but I never did." And I went, "The cheat that you used was specifically designed to be disguised so you could use it at LAN. Why wouldn't you? That's its feature." So in the end, he was like, "Well, if you're just going to be like that, we won't do it." So, you know. I'm a cunt.
I know that's a fuck. If you're just gonna be like rude and uncooperative, then I'll walk out.
Yeah, fuck this.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, I have to sit there and just let you basically say I never did nothing wrong. And
this is why fans will never get it through their brains. You know when they go on Reddit and they go, "I quite like By the Numbers and that, but they don't have guests like HLTV." Well, logically, why aren't you then just saying, "So I don't watch By the Numbers, I just watch it." The reason you watch the HLTV one is for the guest, and then you immediately go, "Wish I had the vibe of By the Numbers." Spoiler, that's why we can't have guests on this show. They wouldn't come on and talk like you want us to talk. They wouldn't, and by the way, it totally ruined their opinions if we were like, I can't have a whole rant about our players shit and then go, "So why are you shit?" You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a healthy like distance between us, come on.
There's some OGs, I think, like players that would definitely come on and do it and talk honestly. Like I'd imagine a guy like JW coming on and rocking an episode of BTN.
Breed, I think, could do it. Though,
but yeah, Steeko's another one probably.
Yeah.
You know, but in general, I think most players don't want to be adjacent to the type of fucking harsh opinions that we espouse on the regular, do they? But anyway, yeah. So it's a filler episode.
Got one other detail. Here's the one, because I've got the image now, so hopefully Sam at some point showed it, right? Not only does he have the illegal stream, but it's as if he just had to show he is the ultimate cunt. Because when you look below the screen, he's got like all fucking like Ferrari or not like Ferrari, it's like a BMW or something. He's got like some mad car key as well that he's flexing. So it's almost like he's going out of his way to let you know he does have the money to pay for the stream, but just fuck Pasha one last time. Like, why? Why are you like this, Kaylee? Why are you like this? Because I agree with you, Richard. I also even said the same thing. When he got banned, I even remember thinking, fair play, though. At least for once ever, we might actually get a real player that cheated, might just tell the real story. Because I knew he could never come back to CSGO. But yeah, sadly, even denied us that fucking, like... Because, by the way, that would just be fascinating, wouldn't it? If he just for real was like, here's the matches I did it in. I did it at some majors. Here's who I got it from. Like, even if you didn't name names, here's the sorts of people I know in the rest of the scene were using it. Or, like, an obvious example would be if he ever said a line like, "Yeah, I used it at a major, but I tell you what, I know a player was using it against me." As well. Like, this would be, they would for real be some of the best content ever if one of these guys just went on record.
The problem is, like, I don't know, like, they never seem to accept it's over. I mean, pros that have done nothing wrong have a hard time accepting it's over.
True.
They just keep on going and going and going and going. And it's like, you're not coming back, bro. Your position's untenable. Like, you'll never be accepted back in the scene, you know? And honestly, you're fucking like 30 odd now. Who gives a fuck? Like, for me, that would be the if you want to make a positive contribution to the scene on the way out the doors, it's not you coming back and playing in some dog shit French lineup for a couple of months. It would be actually dropping dime on all the motherfuckers, telling your story, explicitly explaining how you smuggled it into a LAN, you know, blah, blah, blah. That would actually help everybody, but you won't do it. I might have to hit up SF. Maybe he'd be willing to after all this time. I haven't even heard of that motherfucker. I don't know what he's doing now, but
no idea.
Yeah, maybe because you know the vacuuming was 2014, mate. It's like
it was so long ago now.
8 years. It's like no one gives a fuck now. Come on, like you know your careers are over. You're never coming back. So, right. Anyway, it's a filler episode. We're gonna try and fill it with entertaining topics. Before we get into that, shout out to the sponsor, NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS. They've just re-upped with us for another year, and they will also be sponsoring the audio podcast, the Esports Gospel. So show them some love. We'll be announcing another sponsor shortly as well, probably by the time the next episode rolls around. So keep an eye out for that. Right. Let's get some of these shitty news stories out the way, the not so interesting one. Oh, go on! I'll tell you what I'll do since it's your fucking rolling already. By the way, I want to ask. Well, what do you drink? What do you drink on the show? What is that you drink all the time?
I'm just drinking water at the moment.
Yeah. Is that
water?
So what brand is that?
That's what people got confused by. This brand is called Calypso, right? Not to be confused with the ice lolly from the UK. Basically, it's just like let me think how we would describe it. It's sort of like a luxury. The problem is if I say juice, you're going to think it's actually some like woke shit. No, it's just like essentially it's chemicals. It's just all E numbers and that. It's just like an American thing that's not carbonated. It's basically just like a sugary, delicious drink.
Right.
I'm trying to think what I could compare it to because it's not really like a vitamin. It's not supposed to be healthy in any way. It's just some shit. It's just I basically drink it because I like to just use the bottle to just fill with whatever after the fact because in theory, bottle's better than plastic, innit?
Right. I get it. So no, I was just wondering because whenever I say it, I always assumed it was maybe an alcoholic drink. So,
no.
Good.
And I'm just using it, like I say, usually for water or the drink that I drink, and I'm sponsored by. Just leave it at that. Keep it mysterious.
Yeah, keep it mysterious. You can say I don't care. I'm good. So anyway, well, look, since it's your rolling, there was like a talent announcement.
Oh, I know where you're going with this already. I already know where you're going with this. But yeah, don't worry. I'm like the rest of you. I did the quick scan. By the way, obviously, initially, I'm going, oh, my boy Maui Snake got in there. Oh, Alan Hender. Oh, interesting. And then obviously, don't worry. My eyes kept scrolling and did a... Excuse me? Basically, the joke is this. You know, when everyone goes... I love the HLTV Home Firm podcast. They have all those famous players in Chad on. Shame about those other two guys. It's like ESL went, are those other two guys available for work only on their own? Like, you haven't thought this through. Did you hear anything about the setup there? They're the least interesting part of that. With that said, though, I will say, I won't totally hate on it beyond the obvious meme angle, in as much as, like, to be fair, that's how I got my first crack at it. Some fucking random guy had to just give you a go. You know this. Like, this is what people don't understand about the industry. Everyone does on some level get given a chance. This is the joke about life, by the way. Everyone in some sense in life is lucky. You have to know where to look for it, though. And the point is, if you only focus on the area where you think you're unlucky, you're going to have a terrible life. If you look at the areas where actually you do get a break and you do get a chance, that's the secret life is you sort of find that stream and you let it carry you to where you're going. So everyone has to get their start somewhere. But yes, basically, if people don't know, Professor, not even Professor, because it's just spelt in that fucked up way, basically he's going to be an analyst for kind of Itse. And I mean, understandably, there's not many people left, is there?
Well, I mean, look, I watched his appearances, so I thought I would give some early feedback and assessment because I'm like you. Listen, I thought a lot of people would probably be like, "Oh, can't wait for by the numbers. They're going to absolutely slam on him," and it's like, no, I like it when people get opportunities because, like, put it this way, right? He might be not great in a podcast scenario, but bite-sized analysis, completely different ballpark, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I watched him. He was mega nervous on day one. It was pretty
understandably.
Obvious. Yeah, of course. I mean, we've all been there. I remember when I did E-League, I was shaking like a shitting dog. And so nerves can get to anybody, even people who've been doing it for a long time.
Like you don't chuck people on tier 1 lands as their first gig, though. That's why.
Exactly.
Like, people think we were just saying that about the major to protect our friends. No, people don't understand this, right? I think Maui Snake is an amazing analyst. I wouldn't have put him straight onto the major. I would have said that was touch and go, or I'd have given him some group stage games only and told him you're not getting anywhere near the playoffs, mate. And I'd be doing that as a favour, by the way. You don't take people like that and just drop them in the deep end because the problem is everyone remembers the guy who swam. No one remembers the sad stories of the fuckers who sink and you never hear from him again.
Yeah, it's true. But by the next day he was he's still a bit dry. It's always hard as well to assess talent when they're talking in a foreign language, essentially, because English is going to be a second language.
That's a pretty good English accent, I'd say.
Yeah, and
speech.
Yeah, not as thick as some other accents out there. So that's always going to be a bonus because unfortunately Americans don't really have an ear for accents.
Oh no.
Whereas the English, the Brits, we have to fucking cope with Welsh and Scots and Irish, just colloquially. So strong accents are our bread and butter. I mean, not to mention just people from the Northeast, people like you and me. I mean, you always get called Irish and Scottish and everything, don't you? And you're fucking not. So, all told, I'd have thought he just did okay. I don't think it was particularly bad. And, I think a play-in is a good kind of environment to get your first licks.
That's true.
And get it under the belt. That being said, there's other people out there I would have took.
Yes.
I think there's some people who, I mean, first of all as well, like it was kind of a bit weird would have wanted to see maybe there's pros out there they could have got as well. Which I'm always we've kind of like stopped doing that as much. Like we were big on that. We brought in a few and guys like Maniac and Pimp and Sean Gares and people like that, and obviously Chad. They've all run with it, and then we've just sort of put a bit of a pause on it for a moment, which just seems a bit weird because there's like. There's people who aren't playing at this tournament that I think could have like made a stellar contribution. I think back to desks at Get Right's done. Forrest has expressed an interest. I mean, I would want to get those people immediately if they're not playing, if they're available. JW's out there, as I said. I think he could be good in the broadcast environment. There's a number of people that I would have been nice to see a wild card on this because it kind of feels a little bit standard ESL stuff. And of course,
with it is, mate, is I don't get what their angle. Like, I don't know what their big up would be for this guy. Because here's the problem, right? He doesn't make extra content. Like, if say he had his own YouTube channel, like people I've picked out recently, like Paladin and King T, and so if these people, if they have channels, they're grinding away on putting videos out over and over and over, even if they get 300 views each, right? This guy just does his stuff for HLTV, doesn't he? So what I don't get is where has he shown his sort of chops and analysis? Because let's be real, that podcast can't be it. Because the problem with that podcast, I would say the number one problem with that podcast isn't game knowledge, by the way. Those guys know the game. It's that they have this ridiculous conceit that this is one of the main reasons, in my opinion, me and you have separated ourselves from our peer group as journalists. They have a conceit, which is that we're never going to actually in any way come even close to saying an opinion that will disrespect you because you're the player, and ultimately keeping our relationship with you is the number one priority, which has never been the case for you and me. The difference is we'll even tell the guy on a broadcast, as I've done to people like Chad, even when they were playing, you were shit in that game and you cost your team the game. And then, yes, in the bar after the fact, we might have a conversation. I might go, look, I understand that probably hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that was the way, but I have to say what I think. I get the vibe, unfortunately, on that show that a lot of them, like I say, they know which way their bread's buttered on that one, mate. And half the time they're just serving up the next fucking softball, aren't they? Hoping the guy can crack out the park. So my problem with that is like, mate, I don't even get what the angle there is. Like, if he's coming in to be his own unique, edgy angle, cool. If not, then like, what's my boy Dust done wrong? What, Dust can't come and do a few segments? He's fucking actually a really good analyst, mate. Like, I can show you, he's got the track record. Like, that's where I don't get it. It's almost like, was there no one left?
Well,
That's
I mean, look, so
there's
a couple of things. I mean, the first thing I'll also say is as well, I think it was really interesting to see the community reaction. There's a community reaction. It's like, oh, great, good. It's Prof from HLTV's getting a chance to be an analyst. It's like, what, you don't want to tell him that he can't be an analyst because he wasn't a player or because he's golden over or something like that. This is the shit I always used to hear every time you were announced and rolled out. And you're like the guy that's done the most majors all the time. People still say that. He doesn't even know the game. They don't understand it. It's like, okay, well, I guess I have dedicated my life to something I don't understand on any level because, I don't even play it anymore, I suppose.
Sometimes wish, by the way, obviously you can't do that. I wish I could just like some of these DMs, mate. Like, I could show you people who've won like multiple majors who were just sending me DMs like, thinking of picking up these 3 players, but wanted to get your take first before I up. Like, yeah, the people wouldn't even believe what the actual behind the scenes is like. It's so mad, isn't it? The Reddit world.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. So there was that. I thought an interesting lack of that, but I mean, look, the community plays favorites more at 11. You know what I mean? But then here was an interesting thing. One thing I did notice in the broadcast, right? And obviously this is like a big cat of 8-6. It's like their anniversary, and they've done a lot of content around it. Fair play to them. But there was a lot of like weird references on the broadcast. And again, this is just conspiratorial rich, probably. So I do want to put the caveat that this isn't a claim, just in case any fucking demented YouTubers want to make videos about it. But there was loads of like references on the broadcast, like they would say something and they go HLTV confirmed and stuff like this, and it's like, are they memeing or are It just kind of felt a bit forced in some areas, and it was like, you remember at Cologne how the recurring champ was, it's LAN, bro. Yes. It's LAN, bro. Yes. We're back at LAN, and can they get it done at LAN? And it's like it's not even a LAN, guys. Come on, it's diet LAN at best, right? And yeah, there was just loads of references to it, and it's like that might be something that springs up organically, like stupid in jokes that we've done. But yeah, it just kind of felt a bit forced and a bit weird. But other than that, mate, like I don't know if he'll be a permanent addition to the talent pool. But he's not done terrible, and wish him all the best. Hope he continues to hone his craft.
I mean, if people aren't aware, anyone who has followed the game in a professional capacity for as long as that person has, it's at least worth thinking about giving them a chance.
Sure.
Just as I say, I wouldn't just put them straight onto a tier 1 LAN personally. Like, I mean, when you said names there, by the way, I'll give you another one. As long as he hasn't got a coaching gig, my boy Legia is someone who potentially would do an event like that. If people don't know, I even probably would have considered bringing him in for Flashpoint if he'd been involved. In fact, if people don't know, maybe I should even do a video on this because I've noticed if I just essentially make it obvious enough, I'm showing all the other TOs my homework. Eventually, they will just copy and do what they should do. So just as they have figured out the Paladin guy after that email, magically you know who this guy is now. Vowie Snake, Alan Hender. Right, I was actually for real. If I'd have done Flashpoint 3, which I didn't, two of the people I was genuinely thinking was Dost and Legia. Because even though I know at first everyone would be like, what the hell? I guarantee you those guys would be impressive if I put them in the right setting. If I put them with the right setup, I know what they're comfortable at, they could both be really good. So yeah, it's no problem on this guy. It's just I also think there's other people probably just more obvious nod, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I'll agree with you. Anyone who's followed the game for that many years, they have their own perspective, for fuck's sake. You can't speak, they know nothing about the game. That's just idiotic no matter who we're talking about. Like, I might not like that fucking Peter confirmation team at all. He clearly knows more than nothing about the game, doesn't he? Wouldn't he be worth saying that? Would he's followed the game for what, fucking 15 years or something? It's pretty good.
Yeah, and I'll just add in general as well, because like, we've been big on this idea of kind of like, passing the torch, and that, there is like a sort of, you got some real young guys coming through that are getting a chance here, which is really cool, like Dinko and Hawker. They're like 21, 23 years old.
I always forget how young Hawker is.
Yeah, that's what I mean, dude. Like, I mean, and so it might be that they're cutting their teeth here to go and do another game in the future. You never know. But getting an opportunity to work with like tenured craftsmen, obviously Sadakist is back for this one.
Yes.
Moses is there. You get to work with Harry, Hugo, Sponge, Yanko, Maniac, Stunner, Freya. This is like, elite tier stuff. And then also just kind of also coming through, you got Darth Mike in there. I worked with him at the NARMR. Good kid. Crazy, like fucking mental. Told some insane stories on that setting, but had a real good vibe to him. Good on a broadcast. Heku as well. She's coming through, done a lot of the Wii player work. So yeah, all told, I think I thought the talent was pretty good. A couple of surprising picks, but this is obviously just the play-in stage, and I imagine as we get further and further through, you'll see less and less of kind of the understudies, if you want to think of them that way, and more of the top tier guys. But it's good that everyone's getting their touches. So well done, I suppose. Well done to Evil Saudi League, as you call them, ESL. All right, news. Let's do the first story. I saw a tweet on Ben Tet's timeline where it was the classic.
Yes.
Signing of a contract. Everyone does that meme now whenever they've got an announcement to make. A classic esports announcement of an announcement, but evolved for the Zoomer generation with a meme wrapped in the middle.
By the way, can I just say this? Because there's one thing I don't fuck with, right? Look, people, I will say this. If I took the Zoomers of this generation back to the shit we were watching in the 80s, look, it's going to look ropey because it's all like fucking, like real effects, Jim Henson type shit. It's obviously all like super imaginative stories, like the never-ending story or whatever, which are like totally out there. Like obviously no kid would be able to fuck with that concept now. But I'll tell you what, at least like there was a level of art behind what we were doing. At least we were picking and glorifying and being nostalgic about the great cartoons. The meme you're referring to, I'm just thinking of this. How many memes of this generation are from that fucking like Hey Arnold cartoon or whatever? Like that's like some shit your little sister watched, you moron, not you. But you're validating that as all that's you're making that sound like that was the Sopranos of like kids TV. That's the shit you would like turn off to watch something better. Like how many memes come from it? Because there's also that one where he's got the headphones on, but they're like down here.
Fist clench.
Yeah, I know. There's that. There's the. By the way, that's that month where they kept the month when everyone
stopped me because I can't read.
The month where the fist thing was it. It's like, and it's always a motherfucker who's never punched anyone in their entire life. It's like, oh, I'm so angry. It's like, yeah, I know you are. But yeah, he did that, and basically, spoiler, are you ready? This is a perfect example of why I hate fans. Which is a bit of a problem, Rich, because my entire career necessitates those fans following my shit and paying me money. But yeah, I know I don't hate the players that much. The industry's kind of shit, but it's whatever. But unfortunately, exactly. I'm like, it's plankton. Well, that's my main fucking food source in it. So yeah, I'm shit out a lot, aren't I? So here's the problem I have, right? Is Ben Tet's rejoined Tai Lu. Yeah. And so everyone's going, oh, brilliant, he's back with the old lads. This is like that story I've told you so many times about years ago, where everyone was like, why doesn't Woxic just join Space Soldiers? It's like, because he doesn't want to make a pittance so he can make, for you, an imaginary HLTV, what would the best Turkish team be scenario come real. So it's the same thing with Ben Tet, isn't it? Like, on the one hand, Richard, I'm glad he has a team. On the other hand, I know there's no universe he'd be back in fucking China, where as far as I know, he doesn't speak fluent Chinese, leading Tai Lu and all that, doesn't have loads of money. He wouldn't be in that situation if there was a really great offer elsewhere. So it's like, on the one hand, I'm glad he's playing Pro CS. On the other hand, he's not going to do anything relevant, is he? He's in like a worse version. And they've just lost that fucking somebody guy who's like probably their best player.
Yeah, well, I think he was brought in with that, with the view to that, because somebody did announce his retirement. And he says it's an actual retirement from the game. He's only 26, so it's a little bit strange. But Ben Tet, I think, was brought in with a view to replace him. And in that regard, it's a great pickup for Tai Lu, sure, because Ben Tet is a better player than somebody, I would even say. So because I really rate Ben Tet. But what I will say is, Ben Tet should be playing in fucking Europe, man.
Of course.
Ben Tet should be playing. I don't understand why this guy can't get a.
Is he not in mouse spots, for example? You know what I mean? There's the sorts of teams. Why are those teams not picking him up?
Yeah, I don't understand. For me, he is the one player that I really do feel has slipped through the cracks of professional CS. Because listen, he was like I thought he was really good in Extremum, even when that team wasn't really good in and of itself. Gen G, I think he was the standout on that dysfunctional lineup. They didn't really get anything done. And it's like, well, why can't he get a break? Why can't he get a chance? I don't know if it's some visa complications or something. But when he did the contract meme, I was like, oh, here we go, fucking great.
Yeah, I hope he had some good team, yeah.
Yeah, who could it be? Like you say, maybe Mouse Sports are going to make a move, or maybe someone else, who knows,
Top 30,
just anyone, right? But Tai Lu, put it this way, I don't even think it's a guarantee, with the way they're doing the RMRs now. Tai Lu might not even get to a major, so it's like...
No, I also think if you look at the current world, mate, on some level, you have to sort of write off anyone who's not from Europe or North America in terms of eligibility in CSGO. You can have lands, one person doesn't get the visa, Now, here's the thing, we should probably even discuss this episode. Yeah. Dude, if we're going to go to lands like ESL's done now, how is this not this is how you know we can't let ESL have a monopoly in the community, mate. And also, you know what, we can't have ESL have a monopoly and then people who are on some of the biggest talk shows work for ESL at their events and then don't criticize them. Can you see where there's an obvious problem we could run into there? Because this is one thing I think's whack as fuck, mate, which is if ESL run these types of rules that they're running for Katowice now, we can't have a LAN circuit. You can't have a LAN circuit where if one player pops, the team's just fucked for the whole LAN unless they make the final or something. That's not tenable. And the reason this is so ridiculous to me, Richard, is not only was it something like 2 or 3 teams ran into this problem, but remember, there's a world where what if half the field had that happen? I understand it was far from perfect when they did Cologne last year, and the premise was they had to have it where you could pop and your whole team could play from the hotel room. I get that gets us further to the sort of RMR magical room that someone just wins from. It's not a LAN. Yeah, I get that. But there can't be no contingency. They can't just pray, how in 2022 am I having to say out loud, we can't all thousands of people go to one location and take a PCR test and think we're all going to pass? We just knocked it off in the last 2 years. So I thought that was even a weird, but I'll just tie this into the point. When you look at the status of the world right now, unfortunately, if you're in China, if you're in Oceanic, we can't know if we'll ever see these big lands. We might see some a year, might see you once or twice. There might just be times where you don't get to play the majors. Sadly, that's just unfortunately the way it's going right now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, and that was where I was going to segue to while we were on the top of Tai Lu. Obviously, Tai Lu were meant to play at Katowice. But unfortunately, and it wasn't even a positive test, I don't think. I think it was just...
This was just visa, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is just the current travel restrictions, and so obviously they were prevented. Getting back to the talent around IEM Katowice, Machine's not going to be there because of travel issues. And it's I'll be honest, mate. I mean, like, look, I try and keep this shit off this show for obvious reasons, and I try and not talk about it in general for obvious reasons. And me and Sam have kind of like made a pact, like, you know, when we do our other podcast, I Hate Here, we just don't talk about the coof. We just don't talk about it because it's like it's just another flashpoint where it's just driven everyone crazy, and you know, everyone gets real irrational, real quick about it, predicated on their own personal situation.
Oh, of course.
You know, but for you know the way I'm looking at the way things are going right now, I've got a pretty good vibe about it not being a factor in 3 months.
Okay.
You know what, my read on the current situation is a lot of these restrictions are going to be dropped. You know, there's a number of countries now. I think even in like
in science.
Yeah, like I think like Japan has been like one of the most restrictive.
Oh, one of the hardest ones for sure.
Yeah, they like completely shut down all foreign travel, and it's been like that for fucking months. And I think they're going to reopen it. I think it's end of March is the rumor. It's not confirmed officially, but people are speculating that it's going to be end of March, early April time. And so I think, you know, look, it's like everything. It was like the reason we didn't do LANs wasn't because you couldn't. It was because nobody wanted the optics of running the event where 50 people get sick, or God forbid, somebody gets sick and dies, right?
It was essentially a more extreme version of like the implication of what Sir Scoot said about Flashpoint. No, that's what people were scared of. They were scared that if anything happens, it will not just be that your event. The implication, this is by the way, probably been the most fucked up thing about the entire scenario you're talking about, is when they tried to tie it as though like you're somehow like morally culpable because you got ill. That was what they tried to always tie in. So the implication would be if anyone at your event got ill, your fault. If they got ill, their fault. Like we've already seen this. By the way, if people don't know, that happened with TI and Dota 2.
Yep.
The whole thing was like, it wasn't just that someone was ill, it was like, and what were you doing? It's like, that's not even what we're on about now. Why have we gone to a Salem witch trial level? This is stupidity, guys.
Yeah.
Because obviously, in this scenario, it should have been the opposite. In a sane world, it would be, look, obviously, we can still run LANs, but 1 or 2 people might get ill. Let's make contingency plans. Let's maybe even prep. Like, obviously, you could have been even cynical. You could have had extra time. So, like, fucking sort of, you could have had almost like a... let me think how you'd explain this. You could have almost had like a couple of extra days either way in case people did test positive and they had an extra chance to get them. There's a million factors you could have done. But as you're saying, it went the other way. Just like the rest of the world, it was no one can ever be ill at the event. Not one person.
Well, I mean, so we you know, what makes it especially kind of like, you know, very obviously an optics issue. And look, I'll also give people, I'll give you a charitable good faith interpretation, and obviously genuine concern for human well-being, right? You know, but certainly an optics issue too. And you know, the absurdity of it is when you say we can't run LANs because of X, Y, and Z, or we're not willing to take that risk, and then you know, Premier League's on, NFL's on, NBA's on, crowds, you know, and it's like, I thought we were sports guys, so.
Yep.
Why don't you send out with your VC money? Why don't you send out somebody to go and consult with these leagues and ask how are you doing it and what contingencies and protocols are you putting in place? And let's get to a place where we can have LAN. Now that's not going to fix visa issues, but listen. I've probably been bizarrely, because it's not in line with my personality type, I've been pretty optimistic throughout most of the pandemic in terms of like. We're going to get back to normality. We're going to come back. It's and I think this is the year where essentially so many countries are like dropping the restrictions and mandates and everything else that I think eventually it's not going to impact on esports to the same degree. But certainly in some regions, like you say, China, Australia, they're probably going to be the last ones to fall. And yeah, it's super tough right now. I mean, yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. We've got an RMR coming up soon. For that region. Yep. And whoever qualifies, like you said, there's a genuine chance they might not be able to attend.
Especially when you add in, obviously, like China, for example, they already need the visas anyway, don't they? So they've already got that extra level of bureaucracy and paperwork that can go wrong in itself, can't it?
Yeah. So I certainly hope, there's, like you say, contingencies and smart planning is already in place, because the major's going to creep up on you super quick. Yep. I mean, whether people think so or not. But yeah, so sad for Tyloo. They got replaced by Sprout at Katowice, the way it worked. And so they weren't able to compete with Bentet on the roster. But looking forward to see what they do moving forward. What else happened? Yes, JW obviously officially out of Fanatic now, and has supposedly hooked up with Flusher, which not a surprise. I had him on my podcast not that long ago, and he said that for him, he would want to make a team with Flusher. Ideally, he would want to sort of roll back the old Fnatic lineup, even, he implied. So not a surprise him and Flusher have paired up. Flusher left his...
Everyone except Crims is available.
Yeah. I mean, Flusher left his Gorillas project now. That's kind of in Sunny's hands, I understand. And they had an announcement too recently, which we might get to. But yeah, he said him and Flusher were looking to build a team. He did an interview. It was on HLTV where he said, actually, JW I was the guy who built teams for Fnatic, and I did it for a while. So maybe I'll start my own Swedish organization. And certainly, I hope there's people out there that are willing to give it a try. Because spoiler. Sorry, Jesper, I don't know what you're going to do as a player, but start a team, get some funding, start an org if you can, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities for you to do so if you get the right people attached, and then maybe transition into being a coach or an owner, or, probably time to start getting busy with some, the next phase, if form continues the way it is. But regardless, those two pairing up and making a team, I mean, do you think there's enough Swedes out there that they could build something viable?
I mean, the key thing to me is, as far as I know, there haven't actually been any real efforts by legit formerly top Swedish players to really go and scout the talent. What they do is they themselves, everyone has too short a term mentality, because the problem is you have to understand, if the scene was like sports, you don't ever have to care about anyone else. You just do the best for yourself today, your team, and you try and win, right? That's all you have to do. But in this scenario, when we're talking about developing the Swedish scene, blah, 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 like the real problem is the top talent just got so disconnected from the actual talent that's in Sweden that they don't even know they exist. So to me, if they were willing to go that angle, it's JW and Flusher, and then let's say, if he's alluding to it, let's say like Olaf Meister or someone wants to give it a go. Okay, that's not a bad start, but then we got to get like two up-and-coming players who are like real potential talents. And then, as you're saying now, whether or not this is the lineup with JW that works, the idea is there could be a lineup after you, though, where you're just the coach or you're the GM, and these players then do go on to great things and you can actually be involved directly. Because I don't see them getting these players and making an interesting team in tier 1 right now. I don't even think at this point, especially bearing in mind the way the LAN setup is, you're not even going to be at the LANs, are you? You're not going to win through the qualifier. You're not going to have the fucking partner spot. You're not going to get invited. So unfortunately, this isn't even like years ago where you could have a few old school players stick around in the LAN circuit. I don't think there is a LAN circuit like that anymore. So to me, it's more about essentially, can they parlay what's left of their career into helping some young players? Because there's the thing, if you could find the next Brolan and put him with JW and Flusher, and they're actually willing to for real mentor, then yeah, we could turn the Swedish scene problem around pretty quick.
Yeah, and it's definitely an issue that, like, we've talked about it multiple times, where there were just too many players that were like sort of fed to the lions a little bit, thrown into like big name teams, big lineups, given positions that weren't native to their play style, and sort of told to get on with it, sink or swim, and most of them sank. And this really,
like, if you think about it, Swedish CS back in the day, you'd have the odd famous example fucked up. But I'm with you. That, basically the class that fucked it for everyone was the Epsilon guys. It was the Draken, Disco, Doppelin, Rez, like those guys at Freddie B. That lineup, if you remember, at one point, nearly all of them looked like they were going to make it. And then the joke is only Rez made it. And then to what degrees even he made it at this point. And somehow that generation just flopped, didn't it? Like you would expect a couple of those guys should have gone on to be the next Olaf Meister and the rest. If anything, that's actually why fuckers like JW and Flush were still hanging on a couple of years ago. They just actually outlasted the next generation.
Yeah, but that again, I've seen multiple scenes where that's happened, right? Where the generation lingers a bit too long and has the benefit of doing so because they act as almost like gatekeepers of their own potential demise, because they're the ones who dictate who gets the opportunities. And when those opportunities aren't immediate, they cycle them out with another, they don't give them a role swap. They just get another player and try that, and then another player and try that. And suddenly you've gone through all of the prospective talent who, that opportunity hasn't helped them. It's hindered them because, what have they really learned from it? And so, yeah, it's happened a few times. Happened in the French scene, where you get this bottleneck, and it's definitely sad to see the state Swedish Counterstrike is in. I mean, if you think about it, if NIP are the best Swedish team, and they're relying on Danes to do the heavy lifting in the lineup, I mean, it's a pretty sad indictment of what's happened the last few years. So I'd like to see JW and Flusher use the last of the summer wine, so to speak, to fucking bring up a new generation of Swedish players, and then those guys can, retire, move into different roles, and just continue to work together. So, so I'm not excited for the lineup, but I am excited for the project. I hope they make it succeed for sure. Right, what else have we got in the news? Well, speaking of people coming back, there was a Finnish lineup, Arlu and Twister. Obviously, we've got Arlu. He's been wanting to build a team. Twister, the coach, is back, and so Arlu's playing under. They're playing in a.
It's obviously coach ban. If people don't remember, had the exploit ban.
Yeah, that's what I mean by him coming back. Yeah, he was obviously out of the scene for a while. He was one of the coaches that was serving a ban, and Arlu's picked up some of those other players, ex-Harvu players, guys like that who've been on the periphery since his Ents has moved to an international lineup. This is the only all-Finnish lineup out there now. In fact, there isn't even any Finnish players left after they dropped Doto on Ents.
Oh, there's
not. So even though it's a Finnish org, it's not a Finnish team in any way, shape, or form anymore. But anyway, Arlu, Sadix, Upi, Zori, Arvid, with Twister as coach and Zate as an assistant coach. So there's some relatively tenured names there, and some players that have been around for a while. Like I said, Zori, obviously, he's been around the block. There were a lot of people touting Sadix as a potential prospect in the Finnish scene. And of course, Arlu, 29 years old, probably his last go around. Certainly his last opportunity, I would say, to make an all-Finnish lineup work. So what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, like you say, it's one where at first, like, the names aren't crazy, like, marquee names. But actually, a couple of those are known players. Like, the Zori guy was pretty good when he was in Harvu when I saw him in Flashpoint 1. He was an all-pro. If people don't know, he was actually one of the better players in the team. And definitely had the best numbers back then. He didn't really make it to sort of the jump up to tier 1, but whatever. That's not where this team's at. Obviously, like you say, Alu's pretty old. The thing is, to me, this is why I actually sort of understand why the Finnish scene let Arlu effectively fuck it up for that year and a half. He is the most obvious player that you would bank on in their scene. Like, he's the only player that simultaneously was a good player and at all levels, always had confidence in himself, and thought he knew the right answer. There's no one else like that, by the way. Like, if people haven't noticed, you go do an interview with an XEB, he's riddled with insecurity. He's not sure if these are the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, each of them has a specialty, but they don't have, like, the charisma to carry it off. So the key thing is, I give a small chance. I'll give a 10% chance. Alu actually can still be a pretty good player. Like, I don't write him off at all. He's got a pretty good mindset for the game. I get the vibe, as you might have seen if you saw my interviews with him, I get the vibe he knows he fucked up these last few years, and probably with some other shit going on in his life as well. Just he doesn't get to talk about it,
Actually, it was very illuminating a little bit, because I'm like you. My read on it was based on what he was saying and the answers he had. I think there was not. I don't want to call it contrition, but I think he did. He certainly had an awareness that the Ents project could have gone a lot better, a lot differently had he acted in a different way.
But if people don't get it, if you haven't done interviews, there are a million ways a player could have made more excuses there, or had all mental copium. And he actually, like you're saying, he seemed pretty open to it. In fact, it's one of the reasons I didn't go that hard on him, because if you notice, he sort of just gave up all the info himself and sort of agreed it was a bad move with Alexi B, basically almost everything he copped to. So the key thing is, if that's real, and I got the vibe it was, then I could see him still doing something in the last years of his own career. It's not going to be at a top level. Like, I doubt you're going to get really good players for this squad, but he's still a good enough player to be worth watching, put it that way.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, I again, no great excitement for the lineup or the prospect, but like we keep saying, when the scene is in flux like it is right now, there is going to be opportunities for teams that maybe don't immediately pass that test on paper where you're excited and you want to see them play, and they're going to be able to go out there and pick up, a few surprise wins. Personally, I could see this tournament, this team, surprising at some of these smaller tournaments, and certainly I would place them alongside, capable of they could beat a Sprout, they could probably beat Dignitas, right? They could probably beat, that Ecstatic lineup. with God from Sky, everyone's favorite IGL. So, I mean, you know, I'd definitely say don't rule them out of like having a few surprises, a few upsets. Maybe they can have a good run in a qualifier and get to a big tournament and upset a few people. So, and I'd like to see Arlu do it. I mean, despite all my criticisms leveled at him during the time with Ent, and I think he fucked up massively, and I think the org fucked up massively by empowering him as much as they did and making him like, you know, the golden child, so he got to do everything he wanted. He certainly hurt Sergei's career with his antics, which is unforgivable because he was a real talent, and I don't know if we'll ever see him get back to it. You know, but at the end of the day, I always liked the dude. I always thought he was a good dude. Like I always thought, you know, like sometimes ego and drive can just fuck you up on a short-term basis. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him succeed, and I guess he's been a little bit humbled by the experiences he's had, and probably just wants to make a good go of it before he retires, probably in a year or two. So, right. I think that's pretty much all of the big news stories. I don't think we've glossed over anything. So with that said, we can now talk about the Katowice play-in, because Katowice had like a little sort of pre-qualifier to get the teams to go through to the teams that are directly invited. And it did throw up some interesting results. Remember, obviously, start of the year, we're seeing all these lineups, these new look lineups. And we're going to see how they're going to do. We're going to get some insight into what they're going to do long term. So I'm just going to start with this. Copenhagen Flames got through the first chance, the first hurdle. They beat NIP, remember, who were playing without device, 2-0. Rough game for Fozy, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But Copenhagen Flames, they said in interview material before they came in, they said, listen, we want to get back to LAN. We want to get back on track. All the speculation around where we were going really distracted us. So this is what this is what we have to do. We have to win here and get on to the later stages. And they did that and looked good while they did it. They beat Fnatic 16-7 in the best of one as well. So are Copenhagen Flames going to get back to winning ways? Or was this just, you know, they got to play the right teams? They got to play beatable teams?
I mean, look, NIP without device, if people haven't seen them play, even on land, they were surprisingly good, actually. Like, they wouldn't just get dusted off by anyone. Like, usually the team had to be playing well or be a top team to beat them. So, certainly, the idea they've beaten Fnatic in a best of one and NIP in a best of three, look, that at least gets my attention. I actually wanted to just start with this, though, because you know what, one thing I actually care about a lot is, like, semantics and how you even frame an idea, right? And all I'm going to say is this is something I've noticed with Copenhagen Flames. I'm going to pick on HLTV for a moment, because why break the habit of a lifetime? So, The other guy, the aforementioned monster, fucking striker, he posted the interview. I don't know if he conducted it, but he posted the interview with Huxley, right? And this is what it says. The headline goes, Huxley on coming back to form. We want to go in that fucking arena so bad. Right, let me just explain to you what the concept of the term form is. Form is how you play and perform most of the time. That's why it's your form. Like, if I was telling you, the most famous example, if you're not from England, would be a racing track. If I'm talking about the form of a horse, what I'm maybe telling you is, like, how's he done, say, in his last 4 outings? How's he doing, right?
Yeah.
If I had something where I one time was successful and then every other time failed, my form is being a failure. It's not the one time I'm successful. So when people even use this term like Huxley on coming back to form, you mean the form where he sort of made it through an RMR and then was all right at a major and didn't make it in, like, what form? Like, so already that angle is whack. But I will say it is the obvious interest point, which is, how is this the only team seemingly in the whole world that has the players that should only be good online, but they're actually only good offline? Which is the part that does seem weird, right? I agree with you. That does seem like a very weird, like, fucking Twilight Zone scenario, because it doesn't even really make sense. But I'll also add in as well, the other reason I don't really vibe with Copenhagen Flames is, first of all, I also still don't think they're that good a team. I think they've got some pieces that are all right. But I also saw, because I've been reading the interviews with their team, because I'm interested in what didn't happen. They're also doing this whole angle now, Richie, where they're also sort of like, well, it was a big distraction, all the discussion about the roster. Like, let's just put all cards on the table. That roster move had to happen, as in the majority of this team needed to leave Copenhagen Flames. And or maybe even some of the bigger names go to bigger name teams and like proper squads. The fact that that didn't happen is the real issue. And it has nothing to do with the idea you were distracted, because that's nonsense. Like, you don't play differently because you're waiting for someone to buy you. That's like a whack excuse anyway. But my bigger issue is this. What is the point in this team if they just end up staying Copenhagen Flames? Like, aren't they just, like, I'll give you my prediction right now. Here's what happens in this tournament, right? So you look at the competition, right? Maybe they get one or two up. Like, maybe they can win a best of one. Maybe there's like one best of three they could nick. They're not getting anywhere close to the fucking stadium. They're not going to be a relevant team later. It's like, at best, they're an also run. In fact, making it through to this portion, already well done. Well done. Like, I don't have any hate against them as a team. I just don't think they're actually that good, mate. I think they're okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, so what I think as well is, though, unfortunately, I think they're going to do what a lot of teams in their position do, right? Which is, and I've seen this more than once down the years, they go to a tournament, they have a breakout tournament, they get a lot of buzz, orgs want to pick them up, they take their eye off the ball or price themselves out the market, or the move falls through for some other extraneous factor, and then they're left. They're left at an org where the management know these players ain't loyal, right? Like, they don't want to be here. They've publicly said as much. The players are like, shit, we're really demotivated now, because when we missed out on the big money move. And then, okay, well, the only way to get out of it is to go to another tournament.
Yep. You got to play your way out of it, yeah.
And play your way out of it. And so sometimes that can galvanize you once, twice.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not a sustainable. So, I mean, for me, you're probably seeing Copenhagen Flames coming in, trying to play out of their skin, out of their mind, to try and get that big move. But I'm like you, I just don't think they can get it done now against the big boys. They had a window where all of those teams were dying on their arse. Many of them had made replacements. That was when you had to get to the stadium, had to get those upsets, because you're not going to get them now. Like this month is Katowice, essentially, as big a tournament as it is, this is table time for these new lineups.
Yeah, for real.
It's a warm up for the rest of the year, and we're talking about experienced, tenured IGLs, basically building teams, giving players experience, getting them used to the LAN environment, and unfortunately, Copenhagen Flames can't level up. They haven't been able to level up. They've kept the same lineup. They're at the same org. They've got the same resources. So I think well done on making it to the later stages, to the actual event for real. Their first match is against Virtus Pro, mate.
They're not winning that on LAN, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, surely not. Like, surely not. And it gets worse, because if they win that, they're probably going to play Gambit, because Gambit have got NIP. So I mean, mate, it's just
they're done.
Yeah, they're done. I mean, it's like it's sad, because in a different world they're representing complexity, and probably they're there as complexity, because
and the joke is, just like everyone has that hype about the NA complexity, like that would be the European. I'd be like, they've got an up and coming team, let's support them. No, basically we can wind all this back to what we talked about a few episodes ago. Those players will look back on their hubris of trying to act like they were. Like, the joke is, they tried to pull Cold Zero type moves without being Cold Zero. Like, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get the bag when you've done one tournament ever. By the way, spoiler, it hasn't happened yet, because it'll happen before the next episode. But did you see that it's implied that TSM's where The Last Dance is going?
I have heard that, yeah, which is perfect.
Give me a break. Oh, it is. I can't wait.
Team social media.
I can't wait for it, mate. That's going to be... You've nailed it. So once you got that one, two birds with one stone every time.
Oh, yeah, mate, we'll be there.
Exactly.
We'll be there. Like brick top.
But don't you think that is mad, though? Because when I look at these players now, like, listen, I get that they now know they fucked up the Copenhagen Flames guys. Yeah. But, like, what a wasted opportunity. Because, as you say, when they went out even of that last major, as in people could have started negotiating before even the playoffs began, that was exactly when anyone who picks them up gets insane goodwill. Fans actually really think the team might be good, and you could have been doing something in those last few months of last year, and you could come into this year in practice. Whereas, as you say, like, the joke is, we're almost like out of the honeymoon phase. Like, all these real teams are going to be for real rolling, and like, even just the names you've listed, like, mate, I could list like 10 teams in this tournament, which in like a month will dust Copenhagen Flames off.
Oh yeah, of course, mate. And look, the reality as well is, though, this is a team that, if it doesn't succeed, roster changes are coming. Now, if
they should have just been broken apart for parts, like the AWPA should have been in fucking Astralis. Roy should probably be in, I'd pick whatever team you want, some team with MSL maybe or some, I don't know, some good squad. There's a bunch of teams these players could have gone to.
Well, yeah, and look, let's the thing is, if by getting the squad, you might be able to even get some value out of like the older players because, Roy's 28 and Hoopsy's 26. I know he's the IGL, so that's fine, I guess. But you've got two 18-year-olds on the roster, and it's like if you do have to swap pieces around, you've got young kids that in 2 years might be fucking mega, right? So yeah, I mean, they really had to sort of just lower their expectations about what the big move was going to look like. None of these players have tenured careers. None of these players deserve the bag. I mean, that's the reality of it. And so the idea that, and by the way, now they're sort of intimating that, you need to talk to Complexity about why we didn't get why we didn't get the move. You need to talk to Complexity management. Well, we all know what's gone on. Complexity 100% wanted you. It was essentially a done deal. So yeah, it's like, for me, I don't think they'll get anything done here, and it's just sad because you sort of wonder what could they have been, what could they have done. I say it every week. I'm sure they'll look back and regret how they handled stuff.
I'll also say this: as harsh as this is, this needs to be said, and I'll say it one more time. You didn't upset Nip and go to the playoffs. Yeah. So what you did is you almost did one of the most amazing upsets ever, an amazing wedge run, but you didn't. Now, the reason why people will think you nitpick, I'm not. That distinction is key. If they'd actually done it, Richard, I could still say to this day, it still was a team top 8 at the major, though. They were in the mix. But they didn't. If that was the best ever day, and you didn't make people don't get it. That's a window you've missed now. It's as you said, you nailed it correctly. Essentially, you can still do it again, but you have to do the whole thing again. This tournament has to be the next major. You have to now make a run at this tournament where even if you don't make the playoffs, you're this close against fucking Gambit in the low bracket. So if you can do that, maybe again the same hype can happen. But whatever goodwill they had, it's spent now completely. Fans don't even care. It's only a few months later, but fans don't even care now.
So the other Danish team we love to talk about, Astralis, they managed to get through. They
There's a phenomenon that's going on here, Rich, and it goes like this. One of the reasons I never say Fanatic is utterly fucked is because inexplicably, when they play in the games against the bad teams, you think, they're just done completely. They always win way more of those than you expect. It's just that after that, they can't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll always, every time you think Big should have a mirror, that's when they'll just sneak through and someone will have the best map they've had in the last 10 outings. But immediately after that, they regress right back to just being nothing. So I know fans are going to get blue.
No, but this is big as well in a nutshell. Think about, look, this is why Maui, when you watch this, bro, I keep telling you, big aren't there, and they're not there.
I know, come on.
They're wildly inconsistent. Yeah, they're wildly inconsistent, and they always will be. That's just the way it is with big. You're gonna have to temper your expectations. I can't see them ever being top 5 at any point this year. So no. But anyway, Astralis were able to beat them 2-1. Really close in the sense that Astralis won their pick relatively comfortably. Big won their pick comfortably. And then Overpass, I really felt that there was a chance Astralis might have choked on that map. It was looking like that was the way it was going to go at one point after they had a real strong lead. But it didn't work out that way. And ultimately, it came down to just grit, I would say, and a pretty for the first time, a well-rounded performance from everyone, even Lucky, on that map Overpass. Not in the series, but overall, And there was a story coming into this, which I don't know if you saw. It was one of them clout-seeking fucking leaker accounts, and they did a report. I think I could be wrong about that. It could be a legitimate journalistic outlet, but I think it was one of those. Like an Overdrive or whatever the fuck he's called. It was a Reddit. It made it to Reddit, and basically it said sources: Zipnix has been told if he doesn't improve his performance, he'll be dropped from the roster, and he agrees with that. Apparently as well, which is probably does.
Okay.
Yeah, got the bag. Right. No, he agrees to those terms. I find your terms acceptable. And so he did. I mean, certainly in these games, which by the way, MIBR big. come on, sure, you should be competitively relevant in these games. But he actually looked to be back to some sort of semblance of looking like a competent player, which, you can't always say. But yeah, basically Overpass, there was a couple of moments where it could have gone Big's way, but, Lucky turned up, had some actual decent rounds. Zipniks did as well. They were able to get some force buys and sort of drag it over the line. So Astralis are going to be there. They're going to be taking on those bigger names. Now, I'll also add, I still think
that group is so fucked. They're not getting out of that group in any universe, mate.
Well, so yeah,
it might be the worst team in that whole group.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, they're in their Group B is Na'Vi, Ents, Furia, Liquid, FaZe, G2, and Fanatic. So, and Astralis will be taking on Furia in the first game, which, hard to really gauge where Furia are at since they brought Safe in the team, because they got battered by like Whistler Krakow in like one of them Pinnacle Cups or whatever. But then they had a good result recently where Safe absolutely popped off. So I just don't really know what kind of showing they're going to give us. But for me, I don't think Astralis have turned the corner. But I will add that if they can have a deep run here, especially in that group, if they can get a respectable finish, that's certainly going to give them a bit more time and certainly lift the mood around the team. Because I'll be honest, I read a lot of Reddit because I'm a glutton for punishment. I go into these threads with the Astralis fans. They're pretty down on this team too. I mean, because obviously the joke is a lot of them are just glory supporting scum.
Oh, of course.
In fact, I saw a bunch of them, including someone who's just comically fucked up in his brain. Suddenly a Vitality fan, of course.
Oh, that's so gross.
Yeah,
and that's so mental.
I was an Astralis fan for 4 years, but now I'm really just there for Magisk and Zonic, obviously. So, but yeah, a lot of the fans are kind of like, this team sucks. A lot of fans agree with our criticisms of Lucky, saying he's just not good enough, and they would welcome Device returning or getting anyone else, frankly. So I don't know. I feel like a respectable finish here might elevate the mood. Let's say.
One thing I will say though is this, right? In that particular big series you're talking about, one, I don't even know how much stock I can put in the Astralis win, because like the joke is for one map only, Config remembered he could play Counterstrike again. It was just fucking dominated. It's like he just rolled back like he did a blast. If he does that, guess what? We can start talking about a lot more wins. The problem is he hasn't been able to do that. And then the other angle is this, and this is why if you're Maui Snake or anyone who's a huge fan of Big, just temper it a little bit. This is who Sirison is. Why are you pretending like he's simple? Like, look, if he could really have come to LAN and done all the shit he does online, I'll give him the props myself. But the point is, he'd be a top 10 player in the world. Not AWPer, he'd be a top 10 player in the world. The reality is, like, he's a way more streaky player than that. And unfortunately, in this series, he had a shit game generally. So when he didn't play up to par, they still could have won. In fact, with the whole conflict, they still might even a 2-0. Who the fuck knows? But you just see, the problem is this. When we go, it's why I always bring up with Ziwu and Simple and Nico, when those guys have a team where the rest of the team's choking, but we do that checklist that goes, right, well, obviously Nico has to be like the best player in the tournament, like check number one. It's like, you are aware that's only a check number one because these guys are fucking aliens. Like, that shouldn't be check number one. Like, if you're the best player but your team's bad, you're supposed to have games where you just shit the bed too. The problem is Sirison's just a fucking human, mate. And as a result, when he's just having a normal game like this, Big isn't a fucking threat. They're not going to do deep things in tournaments. So, sadly, this is also why, simultaneous to why Astralis, I think, overperform a bit, this is also why Big will always be a little bit underwhelming, I'm afraid.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about FaZe. It was set up perfectly by an interview with Twists. I love that guy. He did an interview where he went, it'd be great to see an international lineup win a major.
Hilarious, isn't it? I know.
Mine.
I know. They're so. Why are players like the problem in CS is it's like they don't have any level of fucking depth, is there? Like you might think when he says that's is there some sort of, is that like a clever trash talk or like it? Oh wait, he's just on an international team. So you know, I think it'd be great if me and my family are successful. Yeah, sound all right, brilliant. Yeah, don't know why we need to know that, but yeah, I guess fuck it, yeah.
But listen, obviously, remember, FaZe have had this issue where Rops tested positive for COVID, so he's in isolation. So they had to play with the stand-in, who over on the Deserto Pop Flash podcast we did, You knew all along, Austin. You knew all along. JKS obviously came in as a stand-in for the team, which, as I said at the time, probably about as good a stand-in as you could want. And also in terms of roles, a good
Can we hook up Copenhagen Flames players with fucking Chad? You got Professor on a fucking IM Katowice. They got JKS in the FaZe clan. This guy can do anything. He'll get your team. He'll sort it out.
Yeah, no, mate, I've told him many times, like when he hangs up the microphone after hanging up the mouse, he should go get a fucking agent license. He'd be fucking good at that.
He would.
Yeah, legit. So yeah, I mean, look, so it was difficult for FaZe, but if they wanted to have a chance at getting a deep run at a tournament with Rops on the lineup, they had to hang in there, get through the play-in, get to the groups. Probably need to win the first game because remember he can't come back until he tests clear. So whenever that's going to be, we don't know. And listen, so I think having Sprout, first in a best of one, dangerous. Fortunately, FaZe, won this by 4 rounds, thanks in part to a masterclass from Rain, by the way, who blows my mind. FaZe fans still want to cut this dude when he is FaZe for me. In the same way that Chris J was Mouse, just Mr. Reliable, always there, always on the lineup, you always know what you're gonna get. Rain was brilliant in that, and you know what? In the series against Mouse, he had some unbelievable clutches. I think most notably on Mirage, if memory serves me correctly. But we were denied the Rops grudge match.
Yes,
denied him returning to Mouse. But considering how Mouse have done, and we will talk about them in a moment. This is a really good result. Twists was looking good. Everyone was looking good. I mean, shit, JKS looked better here than he ever did, I would say, in his entire time at Complexity, frankly. He looked a little bit rusty against Sprout, but in the Mouse series, he was fucking legit, actually made some stellar contributions and looked to be quite happy. So, as a stand-in, brilliant. And once again, Carrigan shows, as an IGL, just give me 5 players and I'll get you deep. I'll get you into the tournament.
Yeah, the thing for me is one of the reasons why I thought this was an obvious slam dunk move to do, JKS to FaZe, because obviously he's in a situation right now where he's not like Ben Tet, where it's like, if any team's out there, just take me. It's like, actually, because of his status, like obviously he should be in the Oceanic region. He's got a visa for now, but I assume you have to apply for one. Like essentially, if you commit to JKS, you are committing. Like you say, he's going to be a main part of our team. So the problem is he always needed like this. He needed a big platform to show his skills are really good still. So to me, FaZe is a great example because on paper, when you see that they lose Rops, you're like, well, now they have no chance. So this is a perfect time where if JKS can come in, if Carrigan can make room for him, probably the best IGL ever at just on the short-term fly, getting a guy up and running. Obviously, by the way, this is also where Carrigan's different. Carrigan's not the idiot like some other IGLs would be, who'd be like, right, well, since he's a stand-in, everyone else does all their normal roles, and he just does whatever's left. And, just try not to die, bro. And then we'll just, like, take what we're going to learn at this tournament and take it. No, Carrigan's smart enough to know. You act as though this is a totally new lineup all across the board, and you go, right, JKS only here for one tournament, but this is the only tournament that exists for us. So you're going to do this. Twist, you rejig it for this one tournament only and just see how far you can go. And yeah, look, you're not going to do as well as you would with Rops. You're not going to win the tournament probably. But JKS, people are forgetting this. Before he went to Call, he was a fucking good player. And also, look at the role overlap. He is exactly the sort of player who's like Rops. He's basically going to want to play that style. So to me, it's just a slam dunk because you actually remove expectations when, Rops isn't playing. But then, as you're saying, with the whole Carrigan angle and the fact that JKS is just waiting for a chance again, I think it's perfect for everyone. It gives everyone a great shot at this. Whether they can make it, like, realistically, I think in this group, it's not impossible you could hang on long enough for Rops. It's going to be hard, though. There's still very good teams. But I actually just think, like, as long as he can play even the kind of level he showed in that series, it's going to be interesting. Like, it's certainly a team I can't wait to watch.
I mean, there's even an argument to be made that if they get rolling with JKS in the lineup, maybe Rops does just hit this tournament out because once you get that forward momentum, I don't know if you want to disrupt it. I'm not saying, like, Rops isn't a better player.
You probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, which just sucks to sort of say. I'm sure Rops wants to play, obviously, but I might be tempted not to tinker with things. Interestingly enough as well, they go up against Liquid, and if they win that, they'll go up against G2 or Fanatic, so most likely G2. Who knows what happens there? You know what I mean? It's like, G2 was still a new team and could be susceptible to a Carrigan number. He's very good at beating these new teams when they're still finding their feet as well, historically. So yeah, I mean, I've got a good feeling about FaZe. I think they've played this the right way by bringing JKS in. It seems to have been the smart move. Right, I said we would talk about Mouse. Are we gonna have to eat delicious humble pie, Duncan? Because Mouse Sports have come in, had a best of one against Godsent, close, hard-fought series, loss against FaZe, but they are now through with a win, a 2-0 win over Entropic, and they did both sides of it. They had a 16-14 and a 16-6. And here's the story. Torzy, who was the guy that came in for Acore, who came in from the Mouse Academy side, Mouse NXT, who've just completed a 3P over in the We Play Academy side. They also had to bring in, because BMAS couldn't play, JDC. So JDC is just temporary, but Torzy is a permanent addition replacing Acore. So, I mean, Dexter couldn't have asked for, worse potential, right? Because you've got a new lineup to begin with, because MBK has just joined as well with Torzy. You've got a stand-in from your academy side, who we don't even know if he's capable of playing tier 1. Spoiler, he's fucking good. And so for them to qualify in these circumstances, like, I don't know how much credit I want to give over to Dexter, but I'll certainly say, like, if Carrigan had done this, I'd probably be raving about him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I won't let my own biases or past history. This is just like a really stellar performance from Mouse, and Torzy's been a revelation, frankly.
Yeah, I will say he was the player. The two players in the We Play Academy League, if you ever watched any seasons of it, were obviously, Monacy was the most obvious one. Like, the eye test was just ridiculous. But this guy also, when I watched him this last season, was fucking, like, because people told me basically, like, a bunch of these Mouse players are probably going to get promoted. And this guy, especially the AWPer, because of how Acore was doing, they were like, just wait for it. So I went and had a look, and, like, they're absolutely right. Like, he is mega skilled. Like, it looks like he could be a really good one. So all I'll say is this is why, if you are the Mouse Sports org, this is where a fan won't understand this, but I'll just give you the sports analogy. If you're someone who's in, like, the 13th best Premier League team, you can't even be thinking about winning the Premier League, going to Europe. Like, that's so far off. All you can do is literally put one foot in front of the other. You can do the best deal you can today. So if you've got a young player who's got talent, promise, if you know he's never going to be in your team in 3 years, you sell him at the right time, get the right money for it. Think about what Mouse has done. Mouse went from a really dysfunctional team last year with some good talents, but then some that totally failed, to they sold one of their players, presumably for big money. And if anything, the team is actually better without him, not because he's a worse player, but because on their academy squad, turns out they actually had one of the next really promising talents. And at least on initial glances, is looking like it's working out great. So, like, I don't know who it is at Mouse, because, again, as far as I know, it's not one individual. It's not one, like, big brain guy. But, man, the Mouse org has a fucking track record these last few years of just getting talent again and again. Because here's the issue, right? People do that thing that I hate in esports, which is now everyone will tell you this Torzy guy's amazing. Tell you what, you could find about 2 people before he was promoted to the main squad who would say, "Oh, I definitely gamble everything on this guy." They weren't saying that, like that. Everyone will jump on the bandwagon once it's rolling, but how Mouse consistently does this, I'm impressed. Because they even do it, if you notice, when it's not like them. This one from Academy is one thing. That's like a deep pull. They even do it when it's like they do get the Frozens of the world. Now everyone goes, but it was obvious they were good. Well, then why didn't you guys sign them? No one else signs these fuckers. Notice, by the way, how FaZe Clan doesn't just directly take you to FaZe Clan. You have to go through this circuitous route. So however they're doing it with this GMing, they're doing a great job, and they're doing it again. Because yes, I doubt this lineup plays together. I've heard rumours maybe some of the other Academy players eventually will get promoted, but just with the lineup recently being announced and people re up on their contracts, getting NBK, I assume this is a one-off for the tournament, but just shows you the potential they're working with.
Yeah, and so, I saw an interview with Dexter on, it was esportskingdom.gg. And obviously I've been trying to read all of the coverage around Katowice. And he said, like, it's what's really helped him out is Cyclone coming in as a coach. And again, the proof is certainly in the pudding, right? And he said an MBK has been really good as well. Like, they've been having a good rapport, a lot of input. I think MBK had some rough maps here, but he doesn't need to frag out if everyone else is doing their thing. And as I said, look, to your point, this is the first time I've ever seen an org prove you can do this Moneyball shit in esports. Everyone jerks off about it. Everyone fantasizes about it, particularly American GMs historically, who are like, we'll just pick up some youngsters, train them, and we'll have the best players in the world. It's like, don't work that way, homie. Different beast. This isn't football. You can have your combines and it can have the fastest reaction time and everything else. Get on the server and shit the bed. There's so many intangibles in this game. Well, actually, if you look at what Mouse are doing, best academy side in the world, right? Like, when you consider some of the players that have come through the academy ranks in the last couple of years, that's crazy.
Their academy squad isn't it ranked like 25th in the world right now for all teams in Counterstrike as mental?
Their academy side is legit having deep runs in those tournaments because obviously they can't play at these ones if Mouse are there, right? So, you know, so the best academy side in the world. On top of that, think about what they did prior to even talking about the academy side. Like you say, you know, Frozen coming in and all these guys, they've just got a history of developing young talent. And while I think they went massively backwards initially, when they brought Dexter in and they had that lineup, I mean, that was sort of predicated on the fact that they went away from what they do, bought Acor, and he was trash. Now, also to that point, this is like literally breaking while we're recording this. I'll put it in the chat for you. You can see Yanko just said, I've seen Torzy have more impact on the AWP these past 2 days than the whole last year from Acor. By the way, inarguably true.
Great line.
And Stanislaw just replied with, is it possible for you to give a compliment without throwing a jab at someone else? Why can't you praise Torzy without disrespecting Acor? You of all people should know Acor's a human being. And there isn't a need to attack him for no reason. So Pundit makes comparison of player that replaced other player. Said
directly in that team.
Yeah. It's not even an abstract.
I know.
It's not even an abstract. It is literally a like-for-like substitution on a team, and he's been good. And so to praise the new player, this is what I say this all the time. Players are so fucking soft and out of pocket with this shit. Because here's the funny part. Right, let's follow your logic, right? Can't you just focus on the positives? Do you know how many players I see say, I wish these fucking broadcast talent would stop focusing on negatives and just focus more on the positives? It's like they don't know how to do the job. It's like, well, now you're focusing on the negative about their job. You fucking moron. Don't you see? Don't you get it? So, okay, we'll just say the same thing to you and round we'll go, right? This is sports. Fuck your feelings. I can't say no. Fuck your feelings. It is a success-driven business. And so if somebody is better than somebody else, especially people in the same fucking role, and not only in the same role, literally replacing that person in the same role, in the same team, guess what happens? People talk about whether or not you're better or not. I don't even know where this comes from. I don't even know why Stans took that personal.
I mean, let's be real. It's also convenient as fuck you say that when you are checks notes at the worst period of your entire career. Everyone thinks you fucking suck. Wonder why you might want everyone to be really kind to players and remember that they're all human beings. The reason why this is whack is, one, not nothing Yanko said was disrespectful. It was a totally on point comparison. It was even just analysis. He didn't even put any edge in it. Like, he didn't put like a fucking cheeky beak face like, wow. Here's how you do the same tweet he just did. You go, wow, turns out when Mouse actually has an AWPer, they can win. There you go. That's actually like a better version of it. Yeah, I would have done something completely like that. So, no, the other part that's so whack is this. It's the last sentence there where he goes, you of all people should know Acor's human. Right, that's a standard you can't even maintain, Stanislaw. You disingenuous piece of shit. Because what you're implying is you yourself will only ever talk about everyone on the internet as a human being that could even be reading the comment. Well, that's a ridiculous standard. No one can maintain that. It's pathetic. And you're just doing it because you're just in a shit point in your own career and you're probably still sensitive about all the last 3 months of everyone saying you fucked up EG. Yeah, guess what? That's life. And that whole thing of he is just a human being. No, he isn't actually. In this context, Acor is not a human being. We are only talking about Acor the pro player.
Yeah.
By the way, Yanko's only talking about Acor the pro player. He's not talking about Acor the human being. Some guy from Denmark about his character, who he is. He's just talking about him being bad at a fucking video game.
Yeah, but if you look at it, but not even that, just the specific impact he had for that specific team in that specific role. You know, I bet if you pulled up the tape, Jamie, and you went into Yanko's tweet, you would find loads of them going, "Oh, Acor's great at Mad Lions." So
The maddest thing is, this is the tamest Yanko tweet I've seen in years, mate.
No. Like, remember his tweets to Hunden? They were good.
No, the raging ones, you mean? Raging was
Raging
the
it was.
really
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
So many cheaters, so little time. Right, anyway, back to talking about the teams that have qualified. So let's talk about Fnatic. I think that's fair. Fnatic, we said, we feel that they're a good team and could certainly get through this play-in and could surprise people once they made it to those later stages. Now, spoiler, they've been served a pretty terrible hand in that regard. But how they got there was they had that loss, best of one against Copenhagen Flames. They were then given a bit of a gift in having to play Whistler Krakow, who I think were the lowest ranked team at the play-in. And even though they've had a few upsets online, I think it was probably a bridge too far to expect them to qualify here. So 2-0 there. Then they go up against Big, and this is where, it's a coin toss game in a lot of people's minds, I think. And probably, well, not probably, but Big were objective favourites for this. But Fnatic were able to hold their nerve on Inch, and that was very close. An overtime win. Vertigo comes round for Big. Obviously, Big picks that. Fnatic, again, very close. Not many rounds in it. And then an overpass, which, spoiler low-key, Alex loves that map and has always historically done well on it. Always gets the teams up to a certain level. They were able to close it out in convincing fashion. So Fnatic are going to be there. They're going to be up there with the big boys. Currently climbed up to ranked 15 in the world. When you consider they were down there way past 50th when they made all these changes. They're still on this uptick. The question now becomes, what are they going to do in that fucking group of death? Because their first game is going to be G2. If they end up losing that, I think they play the loser of FaZe Liquid. So these are some tall orders. Do you think Fnatic can do anything, or is it just they should be happy to make up the numbers here?
Like, the thing I have with Fnatic is when they've gotten to the really big moments in tournaments, especially online in here, like, they haven't quite shown me yet the top level I saw when they were playing their best matches online. So I am a little bit concerned. Like, I don't know, like, for example, I don't think they can make it to the stadium portion, as in the top 6. But if you look at their group, right, here's the thing. Even though on paper they should essentially be the worst team in the group along with Astralis, I actually feel the difference with Fnatic is, though, Fnatic has a really good puncher's chance. Like, I think map pool-wise, they have a bunch of maps they can go head-to-head with the top teams on. I actually think player-wise, the depth of the talent seems pretty good. Smoothie hasn't really activated all offline like you want him to online so far, so you need a few games from him maybe. But I actually think they're a really nice, like, dark horse to do upset in the... Like, I don't think they can get out of the group, but I think they can do damage along the way, personally. Like, I think most of these teams should be worried to face against Fnatic. I think it's a way trickier team than you might think.
Yeah, the interesting one is, like, if it goes the way I think it's going to go, the interesting one is when they take on Liquid. Because Liquid's first outing wasn't great. And obviously all of the NA teams' outings weren't great at Blast. So I don't know. That one for me could get dicey for Liquid, but who knows? But I still think just on paper, Fnatic having to take on teams of that caliber, it's this is the level up. This is the step up that you want to see if they can take to get closer to getting back into the top 10, which is where you want to see a kind of iconic brand like Fnatic. So, right, the other and the final, I guess, storyline we'll talk about here is OG. OG got through after finishing top at Blast. They beat Renegades in a best of one. That was fucking dicey. They managed to do it in overtime. When you consider as well, Renegades were using, I think, Liaz has come back as a stand-in temporarily. Wasn't a convincing sign, but once again, Nexa rides again. And then they took on Ents, where you're thinking, well, what version of Ents is going to turn up, right? They've been good. They're in a bit of a slump at the moment, but they have that potential. And then, yeah, just a comprehensive victory over them. Ents was never really at the races. Valde put in a big performance, which, again, I think he needs to sort of get a few of those under his belt, get his confidence back. but OG looked very, very good in this game, very solid. The game was never in danger across 2 maps. And so there they go. They're with the big boys too. And that's 2 big tournaments where they've got to the real stages under Nexa. So, look, I know everything we said last time. We just say it again here probably. But, you know, so far so good, right? They don't lose.
You're looking very promising. Like, I will say, the thing that I just can't buy holds is the stats are too good across the board for the team. Like, again, this would genuinely be like, essentially, if these stats held, this would just be a top 5 team in the whole world. So I don't think that's plausible. But I will say that's something in itself I'm looking to Nexa for. Like, is he leading the team in a different way that's somehow enabling these guys? Because, like, the man you just mentioned, Valde, mate, if I'd have actually had to bet before this team played a game, I might have told you Valde has the worst period of his career because I know he was really put out that he didn't get into Evil Geniuses. There was other basically.
I think he's dodged a bullet, probably.
Yeah, but at the time, obviously, he just looked at like, oh, fuck, like that. The whole reason I stayed in OG was me and Alexi B. Now Alexi B's going without me. Like, well, I'm just the guy left behind. So I actually would have said there's a world where if things go badly, maybe he could be in a really dark place. I think he took the, zigged when he should have zagged. He's looking great across the board. Pretty much all of them look good in these matches. Nexa himself looks like he hasn't skipped a fucking beat. He's looking great since he came in from G2. Like, in general, I still don't have any faith in the project. I need to see him do more. But, like, there's a lot of markers that are looking pretty interesting to start out with, though. Like, it's certainly more than the sort of, like, also ran project I was expecting.
Yeah, and look, again, just keep everyone up to date with all the interview coverage. This one was on HLTV. Nexa, the tagline for the interview they posted from the event was, I could see instantly the players were way, way better than the results showed. And so, again, that quote suggests to me a little bit of a honeymoon period, right? Probably some beleaguered players who were feeling like, oh, Alexi B, his player book was too difficult and he didn't use us in the right way. And an IGL who's come in and gone, look, listen, let's just do it by committee a little bit, give people a bit of love, a bit of confidence, a bit of positivity, and, gas them up in interviews. And so far, so good, right? Unbelievable test coming up for them against Heroic, though, I will say. This is the first this is what I would consider the first real legit series. If they can do a best-of-3 win over Heroic, then, all right, now we're talking about OG, I guess.
I mean, the problem is, though, like, I still think so much of the future of that team just is gambled on Flames. Like, if he can keep progressing, he really, like, if people haven't seen him play enough, he could be a top 20 player one day. It's just the question is it going to be this year? Because if it isn't this year, they're not going to be super good. If it's this year, like, if he gets rolling in 3 months, then the firepower of this team will be really legit. I mean, look how many good players they have.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, right? So there you go. That is pretty much all of the major talking points coming out of the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2022 play-in. We've probably missed something out, but whatever. There'll be plenty of time to talk about some of those teams as the tournament progresses. And if not, and they weren't there, who gives a fuck? So, with that said, we move on to viewer questions. Remember, if you support us on Patreon and you pay $50 or more, you get to ask us a question, any question about any topic, and we will do our best to answer it. So Zumba says, had a dream where my room got overran by rhinos and I ran to my shelter for rockets. It led me to a question. Can a rhino go through 1 meter thick reinforced concrete walls? I mean, listen, 1 meter thick reinforced concrete wall. A rhino can't
get through that. Wouldn't even like a fucking tank smash into that and not get through.
If it was a foot, then maybe, but a meter, no way. Can't even get radiation through a meter of concrete. I think that's how big it needs to be.
What about an irradiated rhino, Sam?
The Incredible Hulk of rhinos.
Yeah, exactly. So no, there's no way. I mean, I think that's fairly straightforward. I think rhinos are tough and strong, and listen, people low key they sleep on hippos as well.
Oh, they're the most slept on. They're the ones that'll fucking body you.
Yeah,
cute, don't they?
Yeah. Now I'd be interested to see what would happen between a hippo and a rhino. That's where I'm at. So maybe me and Sam will look into that, get the science going. But no, Zumba, your 1 meter thick reinforced concrete wall is safe from rhinos. Atarian Why do the Raiders have to stab me in the back at every... here we go. This is my lament. Did Mark Davis not see how the Lions attempted to skin the Patriots and ended in complete disaster? I propose revolution where we force... In a video game, I'm guessing. Where we force Mark to sell the team or get a real haircut. So, I mean, look... I'm not there yet, mate. I'm not there with Mark Davis having to sell up the team. I mean, we're starting to bring in...
got past the season with Gruden yet. That still happened. It wasn't even that long
ago.
I know,
exactly. Like,
and the team's pretty banging. Look at the fucking roster.
Well,
this team's going to be way better in the next few years, mate.
Yeah, it would have certainly helped if, like, an entire draft year didn't go to prison.
That's true. That's true.
That would have been really...
Oh, consider everything the team went through. There's a mad amount of talent in this squad, mate.
Yeah, look, listen, I feel good. I feel good about the Raiders. And, we're still, at the time of recording this, we're still, looking at who our head coach is going to be. I wasn't big on Gruden coming back to begin with. I especially don't think we drafted particularly well with all of those picks. But what I will say is some of the drafts that didn't look to be good picks have turned out to be amazing picks. And so when you consider that, and we're completely free of the Mike Mayock era as well. He's out, and we brought in Dave. We brought in, what's his fucking name? Not Dave Ziegler. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Name escapes me. We basically, I think we're in a spot where I don't want to rock the boat too much and get the club sold up. I want to get in a good, respectable head coach who's going to have a chance to work with this core, work with this team, maybe pick up one or two decent parts in free agency. I want to see how we draft at least in the fucking, and then we can start talking about revolution at the club because, the Gruden thing cast such a big shadow over the season, and it was such a fucking just such a boomer fucking idiot. It's just so quintessentially Gruden. He just was an embarrassment really from the moment he got back. Every time he opened his mouth, frankly. So it wasn't a surprise to me the shit he says in emails. So yeah, I feel like I think there's plenty of positives actually at the Raiders, and if we draft sensibly and pick up some, bolster the defense a little, I think we'll be good. So but yeah, Mark Davis does need a haircut. Right, BP 420. You never have to see or hear another stupid or obnoxious opinion in your life. However, you must spend the rest of your days in Brian Stelter from CNN's body.
All the people to pick as well. I know.
Do you take the deal? Right, and just for Sam, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, listen.
There's a reason he picked this guy's body, put it out there.
All right, there it is. Now, all I'm going to say is...
This looks like a cartoon character, put it out there.
All I'm going to say is, I just call him king of the potato people in all of my stuff. But all I'm going to say is I'm not in great shape. I'm still 30 pounds, 35 pounds overweight, no doubt, for a man of my build and my frame. And I'm a little bit haggard now. I'm starting to get a little bit bagsy under the eyes. Esports is starting to wear me down. All I'm going to say is, if Sam's brought it up on screen, that cunt is 4 years younger than me.
Oh, it's mental, isn't it? Also, I'll say this because I know Americans have done that thing they love to do where they create a problem, then make a scuffed solution to it, then go well, what about the problem? So, Americans are obsessed with the idea that everyone who hasn't got perfectly straightened white teeth is a fucking mutant who can't possibly live in the gene pool. Look, I'll give you, there are some bad examples in the UK, obviously, where people just don't give a fuck because, spoiler, as you idiots should know, it's really expensive to get dentistry done. So guess what? The people who are poor don't get it done. They just do it as a preventative thing at the end when it's starting to go to shit. No, the other way around. They don't do it preventative, rather. They wait till it's fucked and then they just get it fixed at the end. They don't go in from day one of being fucking 7 years old and go... But all I'll tell you is this, right? If that's an example of what you're going for with your dentistry, what are you doing on your end? That's like some of a cartoon. That's not even like a human's teeth. First of all, that colour doesn't make any sense. What is it, like a little fucking porcelain doll's teeth? The whole thing's mental. Then that grin. Mate, That's the picture. He's chosen that as his smiling face in photos. He looks like some sort of fucked up. Like, the joke is, like, why did they even bother having fucking Willem Dafoe wear that Green Goblin mask when this cunt has a real life face like that? Look at it. It's outrageous. Like, literally, like, that's like the way a cartoon character gets his fucking eyebrows drawn in, and that, like, it looks like fucking Charlie Sheen. I'm winning. Like, what the fuck? So basically, in short, I'd rather hear every stupid opinion than ever spend any time in this guy's body in any context.
I mean, I actually listen. This is the thing as well. Stupid opinions in and of themselves can be like good and interesting.
They can be funny
to engage with. Yeah. For example,
by the way, for real, no joke. Every now and then there'll be a Twitter account, right, where they'll say some stupid ass opinion, and you click on their account, and it'll just say in the bio, like, I am a mentally ill idiot who just posts stupid opinions. And I go, fair play. You know what? Yeah. It just eases me right back off it. It's like I can disengage. Like, fair. You know what? He gets it. What did I expect? So I'm with you. Sometimes stupid opinions can be all right.
Yeah. Okay. So, what else have we got? First sock. Oh, no, sorry. Bren. Seeing as Snoop Dogg had the audacity to smoke marijuana, where is the weirdest, wildest place you have done a drug in your life? First of all, I do want to say, right...
Did he smoke it on the actual half-time?
Oh, he caught on camera, just before
I was
watching.
Went out. I didn't. Oh, right. I was going to say, I didn't see it.
You saw it, like, afterwards.
Okay.
Listen, all I'm going to say is, this is how you know, by the way, just how disingenuous and performative a lot of this stuff is in sort of the, like, culture war or whatever fucking nonsense you want to call it. And that is that all of these people who go up, cancel culture's terrible. When fucking Snoop Dogg smoked a joint and threw up a fucking Crip sign at the fucking Super Bowl, which, by the way, that is 90% of his identity, weed and Crips, right? So why would anyone be surprised, right? Or Eminem taking a knee. Oh, you're caught feelings real quick over on that side of the aisle, I noticed. Suddenly cancellation was back on it. You fucking moron hypocrites. If you can't even take the moral high ground, are you ever going to speak about these issues, you fucking idiots? Anyway, whatever, that's a side issue. Where's the weirdest place I've ever done drugs? Shit, I'm trying to think. I mean, because, like, I don't know. I mean, I've been high and just, like...
The thing, Richard, I'm going to guess. I've got an angle for you. It's got to be, because let's be real, this is where it's the weirdest. It's always when you're high in some context and then you have to do something you didn't expect, like, you forgot you had an appointment at something. That's obviously the scenario where it's really fucked, where you're like, oh, or like if you have to travel somewhere or whatever, that can be bad sometimes.
I mean, I've just been beaked. I mean, like, Sam, is it weird to be beaked up at work?
Depends where you work, I guess. What were you doing?
Office.
If you're doing a boring job, people... Here's the problem. This is where you have to know... This is when you know if you've got a real drug problem, right? To a normal person, they'd go, that's really weird in an office. No, if you're actually a drug addict, it makes perfect sense you do the drugs and then go and do the most boring job. That's the only way you can have fun doing it, isn't it? That's an insight into the mindset.
Oh, here you go. I got it. Yeah, fuck. When I was a kid, me and my mate Lloyd... we worked as waiters, and we knew we were gonna. This is like way back. I can't remember how old I must have been. Waiters job, 14 or 16, something like that. And we'd worked at this pub restaurant for a while. I'd started out as a pot washer and worked my way up to becoming a waiter. Lloyd was always a waiter. He was a little bit older than me. We used to play rugby together as well, so we knew each other socially outside of it. And we were both like, the boss there was a cunt. I mean, and a creep. Like, just a fucking, I can't even tell you the stories. Just a fucking sick cunt. We were just sick of working for him. Like, he was just an arsehole. So we decided, like, look, let's just fucking make this our last week or two. Let's just take the absolute piss till we get fired. Like, so we came in one day and we'd done pills. I double dropped. Me and Lloyd double dropped ecstasy before our fucking shift. And we were fucking wrecked, but just laughing, serving food. I swear to God, Lloyd did the coolest thing I've ever seen a human being do. He fell over while carrying 2 plates like waiters do, because, you can't just take them out one at a time.
I was impressed that they actually don't fall over usually. It's a mad skilled job, isn't it?
Yeah, he fucking fell over somehow. Like, face, I don't know, I can't explain it to this day. It's only something you could do on drugs. He fell down, but didn't drop the plates, but was on his face, on the floor, somehow like this. Food all fine. Now, either I just fucking was pill tripping and imagine that, and actually it all gone to shit. But he was just laughing, fucking face down. You could see him laughing into the carpet, like with these fucking 2 plates up, trying to figure out how the fuck he was going to get back up. Everyone buckled in the restaurant. It was fucking great. So yeah, I used to, when you work shit jobs, mate, doing drugs, for me at least, I always thought it was part of the course. You just have to do the right drug that enables you to get through the shift. So something that gives you laser focus is good, a beak or a speed. You know, you can't just do shrooms and go into an office job, or you're just going to fucking gangster trip. But, you know, I just did drugs all the time. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. It never felt weird to me.
So, I mean, the obvious ones that are the weird ones is, like I say, it's if you forgot you had to go and do something. Like the worst is probably if someone just fucking calls you and you just like right at the peak of being high and shit, like, because the problem is you yourself can just get caught into a whole thing there and start trying to talk, and then you just thinking the whole time, do they know I'm high? Fucking, they know I'm high. Oh shit, I'm so high. And like you're probably even getting away with it, but you'll fuck yourself up, won't you? Yeah. They're the worst ones.
Yeah, a couple of bad sweaty nights like that, because obviously if you come back and you've done pills or you've done fucking coke and you don't want the missus to know, and you've got to get in bed and you're lying there with your fucking tiny little fucking whiz dick staring at the fucking ceiling. Why can't you sleep? No reason. You're in the fucking, you know, in the toboggan of doom, like, you know what I mean? So whatever, fuck it. Right, so yeah, just, I don't know, never done them anywhere weird, I guess.
I'll give someone a funny anecdote then, since they want one, right? It's not that weird a place, but I'll say an obvious one is airports, because spoiler, if you've been to too many after parties, obviously if you don't keep track of time, it might be 6 a.m. that you do that last line, but then you notice, shit, I'm supposed to be at the airport in 2 hours. So all I'll say is, I did once have a scenario where I was out of control at an airport, only in the sense, like, mentally I wasn't totally in control of my mind, but I wasn't in any physical way outrageous, because luckily I'm also not a guy when I don't get angry when I'm drunk. I'm a pretty happy guy in general. If anything, I'm more chill. But this is what's mad. This is where the funny part of the story comes. I will say, if you'd have sort of taken me into like the little room and just grilled me on basic topics, I wouldn't have been able to answer basic things. Like I couldn't really have even told you, what were you doing last night? Where were you? Like essentially I was really high. But here's what's genius. Cause at my core, I know that no fan will believe this. Cause at my core, I am just like a good boy, and I just do usually like I don't do fucked up things. I don't do anything criminal. I just live my life and generally stay within the lines, right? Cause that's who I am at my core. Somehow that's like the emergency mode my brain was able to log into, like almost like safe mode in Windows. So what happened was when I went up to this, like the fucking, what do you call it? Like basically I was so wrecked. I got into the airport and I didn't even remember like checking in my backpack with all my fucking laptop in and everything. Oh, I've checked that in as checked in luggage. Don't worry. That's how you know I'm fucked in this story. Because obviously that's the thing you definitely carry on. That must mean that the woman probably was even saying, "Are you sure you don't want to carry that on?" I've just told him no, right? So I'm in the airport. I don't know how I've got there. I've checked in the bag. At the time, by the way, I thought I just lost it, but I just arrived at the end. Luckily it came out the other end, and it wasn't all broken. It was like the craziest look. So anyway, all I do is I'm getting by on basic human impulse, as in, like I'm just saying, where do I go or whatever? Because all I can remember is my brain could only keep like a 1 second memory loop going. You can imagine the drugs I might have been on, guys. I got the 1 second memory loop going, so I'm just keeping in this zone and follow the 1 foot, and I get to the actual fucking like whatever gate I'm supposed to be at, and I'm showing the woman like, is this me? But then what's mad is this, even though it wasn't actually just alcohol involved in this story, the woman, unfortunately, this is where it gets dodgy. The woman sort of clocks for a second that I might be drunk though. And so even though any normal person would go, well, you're not causing any problem. No, she's one of those ones where she's going like, excuse me, sir, have you been drinking? And I can't even remember what I'm saying. I'm saying something like, I don't think so or whatever. And she was going,
so it's not the answer, mate.
It's the cringy thing though. She then starts trying to grill me, right, thinking she can catch me out. But this is what's mad. Even though she was clearly trying to make it like you're not competent to travel on this flight, sir. Because I just kept saying in the most polite way possible, but I'm on this flight. And then she was going, no, but you don't understand where you are, though, sir. You don't know where. And I go, but can I just go on the flight, please? And she was going, no, but sir, you have to, like, I can't in good conscience let you on the flight now, can I? Like, you can't answer me where you just came from. And so I just was turning to the other woman going, can I go on the flight? And because I was just being so non-combative, eventually, this is the part where I just know this main woman was so angry because the other woman eventually just, like, she looked over, like, and then the other woman just sort of went, like, just let him through. And because I got through and I got on the plane and everything was fine, I arrived at the other end. I could tell that woman was so mad because she had me. She nailed me. I was obviously high as shit. But that's no reason to kick me off. Just I don't know where I am. So all I'm saying is, guys, just be polite. Just be nice. And you might get through whatever happens.
I just wouldn't put myself through that. I never put myself through that. If I'm ever that fucked up, I'd just book an extra day in the hotel. I'll sort it all out later. I hunkered down in the hotel. I made the fort.
I was just in the airport sleeping. Like, a lot of choices were made before I was consciously involved in the story.
Right. Fursock asks, if you were transported back in time at the beginning of CSGO and you had the ability to change to a different role for your career, i.e. switching from host to commentator or analyst, would you?
I've actually thought about this before because, funnily enough, I mean, Mousenick said this on my last episode of Snake and Banter, but it was obvious to me anyway. I actually do think if I hadn't have been an analyst, actually, I think host could have been a role that could have been interesting for me to do because I could have obviously done it like, kind of like you do. You put in like 10% of your own analyst thoughts, and then you just use the fact that you can be an analyst to keep the conversation going, to know the rapport of the other guy. I think I could have done some of that stuff and done my own sort of approach. That's basically what I've done with all my talk shows in most games I've worked in. So I think that would have been an obvious angle for me. People don't realise I never chose to be an analyst. Like, genuinely, that life chose me. People like DreamHack came to me and were like, we want to take a different route to ESL, so how about you be the analyst instead of like, essentially, I just sort of backdoored my way into that whole career. It wasn't some master genius plan I had for all those years. I got lucky and then I just sort of hit a groove, you know. So I think host would have been perfectly fine. I never personally took it as like a diss that you're not the main star or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know, because it's like that was always a side gig to me anyway. And
to be a commentator, maybe, right?
I mean, I got to do all three. I was a commentator with Henry, and then I moved into being an analyst when we started the Gfinity's Angels, and then I got to do that in a major, and then I got to be the host, and then I got to host E-League, and it's like, I mean, so for me, whatever skill set I had, I mean, basically, like, I was that kid in school who the teacher would always like the bad teachers would tell you to shut the fuck up and sort of beat you over the head for talking too much. And the good teachers would give you 10 minutes to get it all out your system at the start of class. And, I always knew my skill set was all about conversation, essentially, words and conversation. So, I don't think I would change anything. I think basically the skill set I acquired made it so I could be good in a broadcast environment, no matter what it was I was doing. And obviously, look, stage host, I was never good at. I've done that. That terrified me. I always hated that. And I know I'm not good at that, but I can get through it, because I've been on stage before with bands and stuff. But yeah, like, I don't know. I don't think I would change anything. I think it's good that I've got to do it all. Got to do a bit of commentary at the Boston Major, so I even commentated at a major. There's not many people who can say they've been a host, commentator, and an analyst at majors in CSGO. Like, you've done all three. So I don't think I need to change anything. I think I did all right, actually, all things considered. But thanks for the question. That probably sounds mega arrogant, but whatever. Fuck it. It's true. It's how I feel. Right, and then the last question, Rekovic on Steam. Who is the Emperor Nero of esports?
Okay.
So Emperor Nero, obviously famously, didn't care about the people, and eventually led to the complete ruin of Rome. And as the anecdote goes, was so didn't care, so indifferent, he was playing the fiddle while Rome burned. Now, of course, that's not true. Like, that didn't happen. It was sort of an
apocryphal.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, this is there's so much historical aspects. Like, if you don't know the anecdote or who Nero was, like, because that period in Rome is where Rome ended up like fucked up and was full of like slums. And they were having a real sort of like economic crisis, and those slums, obviously, when they caught fire, so that was the Great Fire of Rome and sort of what predicated it. But yeah, so Nero was perceived to be an unsympathetic character who didn't really care about even his own city, the thing that he built. So within this context, let's imagine that esports is Rome, and somebody who has allowed it to fester and has only drawn wealth from it for their own sake and doesn't care as esports burns down around him. And, well, listen.
It'd be Nikola Nyholm, Nirokla Nyholm, whatever.
No.
It's got to be someone like that. In that vein, surely.
For me...
Because it's got to be someone who's just a parasite, basically, right?
Yeah, well, look, I've said this multiple times. For me, it's like, there's an aspect there where you can sort of point to a Mark Merrill type figure, right? Like from Riot Games, because again, the way I sort of view, Riot Games, I had to listen for years about how they really care about the esports ecosystem. We want to build it up, grow that. They didn't give a fuck. They didn't give a fuck about any ecosystem. They only wanted ecosystems that they controlled from the top down. And they could expel any metaphorical species they wanted out of it. They could ban players, ban commentators, ban journalists. That was their idea of an ecosystem. And they've contributed to some pretty heinous stuff, not just, by the way, in their own offices and in their own working environment, which is all true. But they've obviously as well contributed a lot to some real negative developments in esports. First of all, they pushed exclusivity on MGOs, something they still deny doing to this day. Spoiler, they did. They have sort of encouraged this like American VC culture, and lent into that very heavily. It always makes me amazed as well that like they sort of get a pass for the microtransactions. I always noticed it seems really weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
CSGO cases get shit on all day long to this day, but no one cares about skins.
Yeah, well, not just that, because like I'll say this as well. I mean, I don't think it's fair. I've seen people make the outrageous claim Overwatch invented loot crates. It's like, are you fucking mad? We were doing that shit in Team Fortress 2 before Overwatch. It was even a fucking concept. So, yeah, it's always weird to me. They always get away with that kind of contribution, let's say, because they literally were the more successful Western games development company that took that Asian freemium model that was so popular and ran with it. And it's like, listen, that has its positives. Free-to-play games are great, but once you start adding, predatory microtransactions and grind and tedium,
it's a cynically designed one as well. Like basically, the joke is, if you really are a kid who has no money, you have to play like it was your full-time job to have anything close to the champions and everything you need in the game. So it's free in the most technical context ever.
So there it is. All of the questions are done. And so one last shout out to the sponsor, nordvpn.com. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS. And of course, a shout out to all of the lovely patrons. Our $100 patrons, Benakagi, Carve, Cathal, Cred, Jerky's Minion, Marcus Kiumpar, Michael, Tobias Bernasconi, Will the Weed Wrangler, and our $50 patrons, Adam Ox, Alex C, A Rama, Bren, BP420, Can of Pasito, CMAC1991, Echo, Fursock, Gerhan Kaya, Tetlef Insomniac, Judas, Miss Alcoholic, Nolan, Atarian, Reykjavik on Steam, Saad Sawar, Samuel Hotama, Satan, SynXC, the Bitcoin Cash Podcast, Thomas Laws, Tim Frost, Lonnie, Watchdoge, Zumba, and Zarathenia. That was By the Numbers. We'll see you sometime next week. Until then, take care of yourself. Bye.